Hello all, welcome to Cloud Technologies, and we are very happy to announce that we are going to provide a free course for MuleSoft for all the freshers and beginners and who want to learn MuleSoft from scratch. This is entirely free course which we are going to release on day by day basis. So it will be a 30 days course, so it is very helpful for you to learn MuleSoft from scratch. And we have explained this course with the real-time project. We have built a real-time project also. In order to explain that, we have created a couple of files and project code as well. So if you want to get those files and projects, please email us with this subject line, request to share level 1 course file. Also, we have an important announcement that we are planning to release a MuleSoft advanced level 2 course very soon. So in this course, we will be discussing most of the topics of MuleSoft, which will help you very well in order to complete level 2 certification as well as to work on complex real-time projects as well. So I hope you will be enjoying that course as well. So if you want to know more details about advanced level course, please contact us via mobile or email. We will be sharing those details. So without further delay, let's get started. Yeah. So in this video, we will see how we can further proceed with our implementation. So as of now, we just added the database connector till our previous video, right? So in this video, we will see how we can complete one implementation at least for to get the library details. So if you remember, we need to implement 4 resources, right? I just wanted to open that requirement document. I have it in my Google Drive, so yes. So we need to implement these 4 resources, but ultimately this response will be coming from Experience API. So if you have already I have posted another video already for this API-led connectivity, right? So in that, what we have learned, we have 3 types of APIs in API-led connectivity: experience layer, process layer, and system layer. So as of now, we have started with the system layer. So what system layer will have all the connector details, and it will connect to that database. It will get the database data from the database. That's it. No transformations will be there, or no business logic will be there in system API as a usual practice. So we need to create process API to make this transformation done, and any business logics is done. We should work on that in process API, and experience API will just call this process API to get the data from the process API, and any validations or any other more security features are there, we will implement an experience API, because we are going to expose experience API to the clients. We are not going to give this system API URL or a process API URL to the clients. We will expose only experience API to the clients or end users. Right. So as of now, we have not started process or experience API. So what we can do to implement these libraries API, let's create each and every flow for 4 different functionalities. Maybe let's create 4 flows, right? So based on that, we will just print, we'll just send the response as it is from the system API without any transformations. So whatever the data coming from the database, we can just send it as a response to the system API. Once we start designing this process API in our next video, or maybe after 2 videos, then where we will do all the transformations, and we will send that response through experience API to the end user. Right. So before we are going further, you need to understand a couple of other small basics. If you are already aware of it, that is fine. But I just wanted to explain something like flow, subflow, and private flow. So we have a flow scope as well as we have a subflow scope. So this is subflow, this is flow. What are the differences you observed? In flow, you have source, process, error handling. 3 sections are there in flow, right? So we can trigger the flow by using this source. The source may be HTTP connector or any queue connector or any VM queue or any scheduler, anything, right? I'll tell you the scheduler and all later. So we can trigger this flow. We can call the flow directly. We can invoke any flow Once we trigger the source, source will send the message to the processes, and all the connectors which are available in the process section will work on that particular message, and it will send the response. So any error is occurred in this flow, it will go to the error handling block where we are handling the errors, how we can send the error response and all. So every flow will contain source, process and error handling. This is one point you need to remember. And subflow. See, there is no partitions in the subflow. It is just a one scope. There is no partitions like source, process or error handling. Nothing is there in subflow. So by using this, what you can understand, subflow means set of processes. So these three sections are there in flow, source, process and error handling, but subflow is nothing but process section, only process section. Means as many as connectors you can use, as many as components you can use in this subflow, but you cannot trigger this subflow individually because the source is not there. You cannot trigger the subflow directly. You need to invoke this subflow in any of the main flow, then you can able to execute this subflow. But you cannot execute subflow directly. Also, subflow doesn't contain its own error handling. So here error handling section is also not there. It is just a set of processes. That's it. So error handling is also not there. So any errors occurred in this subflow while working on this particular logic, that particular error will be taken care of the parent flow. Here parent flow means the flow which is calling this subflow. So here it is a main flow. We have one component called flow reference. See, this is the flow reference. We can use this flow reference to call any another flow into this flow. So we just drag and drop the flow reference, right? Here what we can do, once you double click on it, it will show you the properties. In that properties, you can select which flow you want to invoke. All the flow names available in your applications will be visible here. Just bear for 1 or 2 minutes, it is stuck. But flow reference is the one which is used for us to invoke another flow in a main flow. Okay, so here there is no components are there. I will just drag and drop any logger. It has created as a new flow. Let me remove this. I just wanted to drag and drop the logger into a subflow. And I want to show you how to call this subflow in main flow. Right, so logger you can drag and drop in the subflow. So here my subflow, maybe I can just rename it. You can rename any flow. You can just click on that name. Maybe you can say test subflow. Sorry, some equal to multiple symbols are there. I can just leave it as it is a test subflow. Okay, right. So I want to invoke this test subflow into my main flow. This is my main flow. Maybe you can just name it as main flow. Main flow means which is the flow which will trigger first, and then into that internally in that main flow you can call as many as subflows or as many as private flows. I'll tell you what is private flow as well. So how to use this flow reference component? Whenever you want to invoke any other flow into this main flow, you need to drag and drop the flow reference component and double click on it. Here see flow name is there. If you can click on this drop down, it will show you all the flows available in your entire application, not in the one single configuration file. That is why flow name should be unique. According, in all your in the entire application, every flow name should have its unique name. Because if you see this, these are all the different unique names of the flows. All these flows are available in the entire application. Means API.xml, it has few flows, few default flows generated by using API-Kit router. So IBS library management SAPI. This main flow like that. So it will show you all the flows available in your entire application. It means all the configuration files if you have in your application, all the flow names will be available here. You can call any flow from anywhere in your all the 3 configuration files of same application. So here I want to call this subflow. So I just selected the subflow maybe you can just name, this is the display name, the name is visible here in the flow. You can just add this display name also same, right? So by using this flow reference you can invoke any other flow here. So once you call this subflow into your main flow, the error handling section available here, if any errors occurs in this subflow also, the main flow will take care of it. Main flow error handling section will take care of errors occurred in the subflow as well. This thing also you need to remember. So another type of flow is private flow. Private flow is nothing but it is also just like a flow, okay? But what is the difference? In your main flow you will have one source. You can trigger your main flow by using this source listener, HTTP listener or anything. You can invoke this flow directly. But in private flow there will be no direct component like see, for flow subflow we have different scopes, but private flow you don't have any scope with name private flow. What we need to do is we will just drag and drop the flow, but we will not include any source here. It will have all the processes and error handling. So that type of flow is called private flow, but the component is same for flow and private flow. What is the use of this private flow means? See, for subflow there is no specific error handling related to that particular flow, right? So if you want to handle any errors in this in your reusable code, if you see, actually for subflows are using for reusable logic. Say for example, if you want to write the same logic somewhere in another flow also, you can just create one subflow, you can call that subflow wherever you required. So that in that case we can just reduce the line of code, because MuleSoft or any other integration tool mainly focus on reusability. We should not write same code again and again and again and again. That's why we have created RAML fragments, if you remember. That's why we have created fragments and we invoked that into one RAML, and we will be invoke the same fragments in another RAML also once we are going to create it. Right, so main concept you need to remember is reusability. As much as reusability you need to implement in your Mule application instead of writing the same code again and again. You need to avoid the duplication, redundancy, duplication, all things, right? So what is the use of private flow is like, if you want to handle the errors of your subflow or any reusable logic in the flow itself, you can go for private flow, because we will not use source here in this private flow. We may not trigger this flow directly because we will not use source, but still we can handle the errors by its own. Instead of handling these errors by calling flow or parent flow, you can go for private flow. Okay, you need to remember these three things. What are the different types of flows? What is the difference, like that? Okay, I'll just remove the other flows. I'll just keep this flow as it is. Okay, now let's see what we can do. So we need to implement the 4 different functionalities. Let me just rename this flow. This is for what? Get libraries. So all the libraries, library details we will get from the database. See, I have selected select star from. Okay, you can just rename it. Get libraries. Okay, so we'll just drag and drop that data view, because in system API we will not go for any transformation. So we'll just print that response from the database as it is in the JSON format. In process API we will do the transformation. Okay, so first let's create all the 4 different flows for this 4 different implementations. It is getting slow. So for this get libraries flow, I'll just print the response as it is in the JSON format. So I'll just change this to JSON, and I'll just give payload. Whenever you give payload, what is it meaning? The response coming from the previous connector will be print as it is. Payload means the response of the previous connector. So whatever the response we will be getting from the database, it will be printed here in the JSON format. right? So let me save this. We can maybe change this display name, the list libraries, right? So list libraries response. And in data weave also you have multiple options. You can save this into the payload. If you can save this as the result completely in the payload, if whenever we use next connector, for that next connector also this complete data will be coming as a payload. But we have another thing where we can store the information. Another option is like variables. We can save any information in the variables. That maybe we can see whenever we are when we have start working on other requests, like for this library id we have query parameter, sorry, URI parameter, right? So let's save this URI parameter into a variable. Then we can do send this dynamically. Okay, where we can see all multiple options as well. So as of now, we are invoking the database. We are getting the database response as it is. Also, in DataView, we are printing the response of the database as it is in the JSON format. So now, get libraries flow we have implemented. But how it will invoke? In that main flow, you need to call this implementation flow, right? So this is the main flow here. So get libraries, this is the main flow, because the once you trigger this, I will show you how to debug this application as well, because it is our day-to-day task as a MuleSoft developer. If any error is there, or if anything is missed, or if you want to understand the functionality, you need to run this application in debug mode. Then you can see how the flow is executing like that. So whenever you hit this HTTP listener, it will come, the request will come here, it will go to API kit router. This API kit router will send the request to the particular main flow. If it is get libraries, the request will come here. If it is create books or get books, it will come here, like that. Okay, so here the get libraries is our main resource. So here we need to invoke this implementation flow. So how we can do that? We just see that option, right, by using this flow reference. So to do that, we can just remove this data view, because this data view has only this dummy response. We can just remove it. We can have the logger list of all libraries flow started, maybe something like that, just for our understanding. And then by using flow reference, we can drag and drop the flow reference and call this flow get libraries flow. That flow you can call here. Okay, so by using this you can achieve, like once you trigger this flow, it will call this flow reference and it will call the implementation. It will send you the response. Whatever response we are getting from the database, it will send you in a JSON format. Let's deploy this in locally and let's test it once. Now onwards we will test all these things in locally, then we can commit the code, then we can deploy this into CloudHub, right? So here okay, we have already externalized it, and host is 000. It will accept local host as well. Right, so what is the path? Okay, maybe in the postman we have already captured it, right? So let me just copy this. Let me create new request, paste it here. This is also get request, and you can copy this like bulk edit. And for local testing, actual values also not required for this client ID and client secret. Okay, but instead of this, what I can do, I can give localhost 8081, right? But you cannot test this because we didn't deploy it. Okay, so you can just save this into your collection again, local request, and this is dev request, right? Let it be for every endpoint or for every resource. we can maintain local endpoints and dev environments. Okay, so that it will be easy for you to share this collection or to maintain this collection. Right, so I just captured this. What is this? Query parameters. Sorry, I have pasted them in query parameters. I need to paste it under header. That's my mistake. That is why it has appended like query parameters here earlier. So now I just corrected it. Okay. Now I need to save this collection. Okay. So let's deploy this in normal deployment mode. Then we will see the debug mode as well. So to deploy this locally, what we need to do, just right click on your application, go to run as Mule application. Yeah, now your deployment is failed. Okay, so just observe this, the error. C couldn't find the configuration property value of env. As we have already discussed, to deploy this in locally, you should not run like run as Mule application. I missed it. So you need to go to run configurations and select this application and go to argument. Here you need to say hyphen capital D env equal to local, for example, for now, because we are doing testing it locally. But in our case, all the values are same. But remember, while deploying it locally, you need to give this value as local and click on apply and click on run. Now your application will start deploying again. So I'll pause the video. Once it is deployed, I'll resume it. Okay, let me just close this, clear this. Okay. Yeah, now it is deployed. So yeah, so let's test that application, the endpoint URL ones. Now you should, oh, service unavailable. Okay, we have implemented auto discovery here, right? So to test this locally, the workaround is you can comment this auto discovery, otherwise it will not work. Okay, so to comment this, just select this shift end and go to source menu and add block comment. But before deploy this into CloudHub, you need to uncomment this, otherwise it will not work there. Okay, so let me stop this application, run it again. I forgot to comment this. So go to run configurations. The same thing as we have already added that. Click on run. Otherwise, actually, you will enter the client ID, client secret value somewhere here in the Windows on the API to get this work. But usually, to test this locally, we can follow this workaround. We can just comment out that auto discovery API auto discovery one single line of code from your global.xml. Then you can deploy it. Then you can test it thoroughly without these errors. Right, so our expectation is now once we hit this URL, what we need to get, it should call this flow and it will invoke this database connectivity. I mean, it will just connect to this database, direct database. It will pull all the data available from the in the database, the real data. Okay, now it is deployed. Now let's test once. Now 200. Okay, now if you see, this is the actual data which is available in my database. I have only two libraries, right? IBS 112, IBS 111. These two are the libraries and this data is available in my database. So this is the actual data. This is not the dummy data or sample data. So this is how you can connect to your database and get the actual data as the response. So now what we have done the implementation for get libraries. But remember, this is not the expected output format. This is just the raw data which is available in the database. We just got it as it is. But so the get libraries response should be like this only. libraries, library code, branch, total books, available books, books rented. Only this is the response it is expected. But here all the available data is coming from the database. Excuse me. So this transformation we will do in our process API. So let's leave it as it is. Okay. Right now, let's save this payload. The response in one variable instead of saving it in the actual payload. Let's save this in a variable. Okay, you can create variable in two ways. One is here instead of payload, you can click on this plus button, and here you will see output where this output should store. You can just select a variable and give any variable name. Variable is a place where you can store any data, payload or any query parameters, any URI parameters, anything. You can store it in variable, and you can access this variable anywhere in the application, so that you can get the value as it is instead of getting another values. Okay, so here I can save this data into list libraries. List libraries where maybe I can name it as. So once you click OK, it will show you like this. See, output type. Now this is showing as variable type, and this is the name which we have given. But the code is nothing here. So we need to just do the same change. Payload. Only payload. Now we are saving it into list libraries variable. But remember that you need to remove this payload. Okay, otherwise payload will get override in our next flow. Okay, you can just select this payload and click on delete. It will get deleted. Only variable is available here. Okay, it is lost. You can just modify it. Okay, JSON and payload. Now this time what will happen, if you run this application, once you deploy it, you will not get response here until unless you say this is the payload, something like that. Okay, so now we have captured this in one variable. Now let's print this into a logger. So log message will be available here in this console. You can just print this logger. So to access the logger, we need to follow one syntax in MuleSoft. List libraries response. This is my logger message. But to print, if you can enable this, maybe just enable the function. All the text you should kept in quotation. Okay, and you can just add plus plus. This is concatenation operation, double plus. So now this is the static value, the normal text value. You can just enclose it in double quotes and use this plus plus. This is concatenate operator. Then you can, after this you can print the variable dynamically by following the syntax. So to print any variables, the syntax is like vars dot that variable name which you have created. So this is common. You need to remember this vars dot. Then the name which you have given here, that name you need to give. So now here our variable name is list libraries var. Alright, you can just copy this and paste it here. So now once you execute this, once you trigger this flow, what will happen? It will just save this response into a variable, and once you test this, it will send this, the database response into a logger message. You will not get the any response here. It will show you 200 OK, but empty response you will get because we didn't modify any payload here. Let's test this once. You'll get to understand. Let this deployed. I'll just stop this. I'll redeploy. So every time just remember, go to run configuration and try to check if this variable is this property is available or not in this run configuration argument. Click on run. So it will take 1 to 2 minutes to get it deployed. I'll pause the video. I'll resume it. So it is deployed. Let's test this and observe the difference. Okay, this time you will not expect response to become here. You will not get any response. Oh, it is 500 server error. Let's see what happened. just like this plus this. Okay, some syntax error. That's okay. Maybe you can just give colon also. It should work. Let's see. Because that concatenation operation you can use inside the data view. Just for logger, maybe it will not require it. Let's see now. Yeah, now let's test it once. Again, same error. Invalid data through HTTP response. Okay, so it is not. HTTP will expect response as we just. I mean, we don't have any payload now. It throws like invalid response it is getting. Maybe let's do one thing. Let's add set payload. Let's give the payload as it is as a response. Okay. Now let's see. As of now, just keep this set payload. But once we're done with the process API implementation, we need to remove this and we need to send the process, I mean, the response from process API to experience API. Okay. So what is a set payload transformer means? It will be useful for to add any payload, a sample payload or any payload. You can just use this set payload transformer. By using this, you can set up any type of payload here. You can maintain it as a response. Let's test now. What happened again? It isn't invalid. Second. So here variable it is payload. Maybe instead of logger, let's try here. Let's print this variable where's dot slash JSON. Okay, now let's send this variable as a response. Okay. Or else let's stop the server. It might have some issues with redeploying it. Okay, let me just run this application again. Now you got the response, right? So let it be for now, and I'll show you how to debug this. application. So instead of running this application in a normal mode, you can debug this application. What is meant by debug means you can observe how this flow is calling end to end, and how all the variables and all the payload looks like, right? So to start application, to start running your application in debug mode, you need to put some debug points. So where you want to see the actual output or anywhere, you can just put some debug points. So how you can do that? Before that, let's stop this application in the running mode. Let's clear the console. Before you run it in debug mode, just right click on the component, click on this add breakpoint. So I have put breakpoint here once, and in the another file I will put breakpoint here. So keep some breakpoints somewhere where you want to check it. So if flow execution will stop there, it will show you one by one. So that's why. Right, so let's start running this into debug mode. To do that, you need to click on, right click on the application, go to debug as, and click on debug configuration, just like the run configuration. By default, if you have added any variables, any arguments here in the run mode, it will be added here. If not, just check it once and add it. So the -d env equal to local we have added in run configuration, but it will automatically come under this debug configuration as well. So click on debug. So I just removed that logger. Maybe it is having some issues, so I just removed it. I'll show you how you can add that logger later. So once your application started running in debug mode, one new window will get open like Mule debugger. This will get activated, and your see, one window is there na confirm perspective switch. This Mule debug perspective is designed to support Mule applications for debugging. It incorporates something. So do you want to open this perspective now? Now we are in Mule perspective, Mule runtime perspective. Now it will open the Mule debugger perspective, where you can see all of the information how this application is carrying. Okay, you can click on yes. See, now it will it will go to Mule debug. This is Mule design is our main Mule perspective. Whenever we are in debug mode, it will show you Mule debug perspective. Okay. So here in the Mule debugger window, here we can see all the variables and all the payload or all the information how our application is carrying. To start this, you need to trigger it once. This time you will not get response immediately. Once you click on send, one Mule debugger event will capture here. See, earlier this window is empty. Once you click on that, once you click on send in the Postman to test that endpoint, Mule debugger window will get activated. Here some information is there, and this dotted line is there now, black dotted line. It will show you which component is currently it is invoking. So we will not get, we cannot put debug point here in the source. Source will not accept any debug points. You can put debug points or break points in any component of the processor or error handling anywhere apart from the source. So now our control is here. It means our Mule application is executing this component right now. So at this point, what is the information available? Nothing, because this is the first component. So we don't see any variables. See, all the variables we will create here, it will show here. The payload, it will show here, like that. So you need to click on next processor. Means once you click on next processor, it will show you the dotted line will jump to the other processor where the flow will go. So in our case, what will be our expectation? It should invoke this libraries get method, right? So that will happen. Once you click on next, the control will go there. See, the control will go to get libraries. It doesn't go anywhere. It will just directly go to this flow / get libraries. And the dotted line is available here in the logger component. It means the logger component is currently executing. Okay, once you click on next, it will go to the flow reference. One by one, sequentially, all the components will execute. So by using this debug mode, you can see how your application is working in the background. Okay. So let's click on next processor. It should go to the actual flow where our implementation is there. So, and one more thing, here one variable is getting created, right? So let's expand this. Here outbound headers is created, but the value we don't see any value as of now, because this header we have not created this variable. This is default variable, it got created. right? So next, let's click on next processor. So if you observe earlier, we have an API.xml file. So once you click on next, it will jump to library implementation.xml file. Now the control is here. The dotted line is here into this database component. It means now the database component is getting executed. At this point, the information available here in this Mule debugger is the information, the payload or the variables or any data which is available here, it is coming from the previous connector, not at this database connector. What is the previous connector to this? This flow reference or logger, right? So whatever the data available here, it will show here before you call this. So whenever you see the control is in this connector, you can understand like the data available here is from the previous connector, not for the current connector. So now let's click on next. So what happened? Your database connector is executed now. So at this point, the dotted line is a data view. It means the data available here in this Mule debugger is coming from the database. So now database payload, the response from the database will be available in this payload object. See, earlier it is null. Now if you can see, two objects get created. It means one library information is object 0, another library information it is showing like object number 1, like that. So now the payload means response from the database, it is in payload. Still variables is 1, the default variable, because we have created variable here. So once we click on next, we can say variable size increase it to 2, because we have created one variable here, which is nothing but JSON structure of the database payload. Let's go to the Mule debugger. Here let's expand the variables. See, list libraries variable. This is the variable which we have created. Once you click on this, it will show you the data available in that variable. So two libraries information, two objects, because our database currently it has two libraries information. This is what we are getting in the response as well earlier, right? So now the pointer is here, the cursor is here, the dotted line is here, so the control is here. Mule runtime control is here. It means all the other components are already executed. Now the control is here. It should execute now once you click on next. So the payload or variables available here at this moment is from the previous connector. So next, click on next. See, now all the all the controls here, it is grayed out. You cannot click now because entire flow is executed. Last component of the flow is executed. So there is no other component to execute further. That is why all the controls are actually grayed out. If you have any other component after this flow reference, your control will come back here. It will execute other components which are available here. But in our case, as of now, we don't have any component here. So it will go to the flow reference. Last component of the flow reference is set payload. So that is why once it is executed, all the controls will grayed out. Now you will get the response in this postman. Earlier it is showing loading something, connecting or something, like now you got the response. So it went out from the debug mode. This is how you can debug any. Once you want to switch back to your Mule perspective, you can just click on this icon, Mule design. It will go back to your normal Mule Anypoint Studio window, right? So this is how you can debug your application, right? So I hope you understand how to debug this application and all, how to create the variables and how to do this. Now let's create another three features we need to implement, right? For those also we can create these flows like normal flows, and then we can test them thoroughly by using debug mode and all. Then we can start looking into the process API. Right? Let me just create another flow. Yeah, so let's create another flow. For in this library implementation only, we can just create another flow. This is to get library details based on library ID. We have another requirement, right? So when we send this library ID as a URI parameter, it should get it should go to the database. It should pull only that particular library information. Okay, so to do that, we need to implement a flow. I just drag and drop the flow scope. Now let's rename it. Get library by ID. Okay, now let's go to our api.xml file. Here by default, or else let's yeah, okay, but just go down here. What is the resource for that? This is the one, get libraries library ID. Let's open this data view. See here, it's already there, like what I'm trying to say here. So whenever we pass library ID, so now the URL will be something like this. Let me just tell you. Yeah, so something like this, slash library slash that library ID. Now your endpoint will be like this. Like this. Whenever you pass this URL, whenever you send this URL, it should get this IBS 111 which I have given this value. This value, it will treat it as a URI parameter. It should save in some variable, and from that variable it should go, it should send that variable as a query parameter, or I mean SQL query. Okay, we will see one by one. But what I'm trying to trying to explain here is like, see here, one variable is created. We have already seen like how to create a variable by using data view. Okay, so it is by default. These are all the API generated flows, right? So by default, if you have any URI parameter, it is already created. So how to read a URI parameters, how to capture the URI parameter details. This is the syntax. URI parameters, query parameters, headers, everything will be there in attributes object. So to read any URI parameter, you need to use this syntax, attributes dot URI params dot that URI parameter name, which we have defined in our YAML. So by using this, what will happen whenever you run this application, you test this endpoint, whatever the value available after this slash, that value will be coming here, and it will save in the library ID variable. So you need to remember this syntax. To read any URI parameters, you need to write attributes dot URI params dot library ID. Library ID means our URI parameter name. This you can this will be changed based on your name, which the name you have given. But this is the syntax, attributes dot URI parameters. This you need to remember. Like this data view language, we have a couple of syntaxes you need to remember based on the situation. Right, so here already the variable ID is there. So now we have only one logger and one data view just for as a reference, right? So I'm just going to delete this. Let it be logger, let it be, and we can start the implementation here. Remember that in which variable it is stored. You need to just take that name. You need to just copy that name. Okay, go to your implementation. Here you need to read the earlier to get all the library details we just send select star from library details, right? But now you need to pass some input parameters as well. Let's see how we can do this dynamically. Okay, to do that, let's drag and drop the database connector. This time also it is a select operation because we are going to pull the library details based on the library ID. So the connector configuration also same. We have already configured it. The only change we need to do is the query. Here the query will be select star from what is the table name. Let me just copy it somewhere, or else before that the query parameter you can save it here. You can enable this function and go to data view. Here you can give JSON format. You can give maybe ID. You can give any name, but the actual library ID is saved in one variable, right? So the syntax to read the variable is vars dot that library ID variable name. We have already copied there, right? So you can just give this one as an input parameter. You can give any name here, but this name can be used. We need to use that ID here. Okay, let me just go back to this. I forgot the table name, so let's copy this table name, library details, and come here in the database. So here select star from library details. Still here it is same. Once we execute this, what will happen? It will pull all the library details from the database. But now we need to pull only particular library ID, library details. So that is why here we need to add one condition. If you are familiar with SQL queries, it is easy for you. So we need to give one condition like where, and the column name, exact column name you need to give. What is the column name? Maybe let's log in, or else we can just trigger the another endpoint. It will give you the column names as it is, right? Acha, we didn't invoke that. Why it is not working? We didn't deploy that code, right? Okay, okay, I got it. Yeah. Okay, that clever cloud. There we have created the tables, right? We need to first get the column name, exact column name. So that is what I'm trying to search. Because we need to say this database that column name equal to this field name you have to give dynamically by using colon and id. Id means this name. Here you can give any name. Instead of id you can give lid. Okay, but you need to use the same lid here in the condition. So like that. But this column name should be replaced with the actual column name. Let's get this. By mistake I have created two organizations initially, so that is why it is not showing. Let me check in which database it is, the tables and all. Usually it will take some time to show, right? Let's see. Yeah, it is showing now. So in this database I have created this library details. So yeah, this is the one. You need to give the same column name, library code, and case sensitive. You need to use same capital letters and small letters as well. So library, C is capital letter. So you have to give this condition. Maybe you can just type it library code, right? So instead of this column name, you have to give library code. So where library code equal to colon lid. Colon lid means it will replace this colon lid with the actual value dynamically when the runtime. But what will be there in lid field? The library id which we are sending from the URI parameter, which is already stored in one variable. Like this, it is linking one by one. Okay, let's see. Let's debug this, then you can understand better. Okay, let me just rename this. Using id. Okay, now let's drag and drop one data view. Yeah, for now we can just use the same one. Like in all the transformations we can do in process API. Okay, so for now let's print the payload as it is. So I'm just changing this payload's type to JSON, and I'm just printing the payload by using payload syntax. Whenever you type payload, the color is changed, right? So it means it is a keyword. It is a predefined keyword of MuleSoft. You should not use payload as a variable name or key name or somewhere in anything. You can just type payload. It will take all the response from the previous connector and it will send as a response. Let me rename this transform message as well. Response. Okay. So now we have done with the implementation, but remember we need to again extend this implementation because we need to add error handling, we need to add some other scopes. That's we need to do more things, but as of now, as per the initial implementation, let's go with this. So we have done with the implementation. We have selected the query, we have given the query and we have captured the response as it is. So the missing thing is like we need to call that flow here. in the actual endpoint. So how you can do that? Use the flow reference. Okay, and in here you need to select that flow name. So what is our flow name we have given? Here get library by id. So this flow you need to invoke here, get libraries library id URI parameter. In that case, once you deploy this application, then once we trigger this endpoint, sorry, this one with the URI parameter, it will invoke this implementation. Okay, so let's select the flow name, get library by id. So I'm just renaming the flow display name also with the same flow name. Right, so now we have done with another implementation also. What we can do, we can just run this in a debug mode. We can see how we can sorry, let's put some debug points. Right, this time the debug point we can add here, right click on the component and add breakpoint. And here also I just wanted to add to show you. Right, so let's run this in debug mode. Debug as Mule application. Maybe just check the debug configuration if everything is correct or not. Yeah, it is there. So let's click on debug. Then we will see how we can test this, the URI parameters and all, how it is getting printed in variables and all. We can see in debug mode it is easily. We can understand easily. Right. So let's wait this to be deployed. Let me pause the video. Maybe once it is deployed, I'll resume it. Yeah, it is deployed. It is asking for this perspective switch to open this debug mode. So you need to select yes. So the debug mode is actually it is in debug mode, debug perspective, and Mule debugger window is also open. So let's trigger this. Authentication denied. Okay, I didn't pass this client ID secret now. So this is how it will work, the client ID enforcement policy, right? Okay, let's try now. Get library data is based on ID. Why it is sending like this? It is not triggered. Give library IDs. It is not coming here actually. Let me put debug point here. It is executing previous code. Let me just, here it is payload. Everything is good. Let's see. Let's debug. Let's run this in debug mode in another time. I think. Acha, sorry. It's my bad. I have triggered this CloudHub URL. We need to test it with the localhost URL, right? Because we have not yet deployed it in CloudHub, and the debug mode you can do with only local endpoint only. You can test this debug, right? So yeah, it's my bad. Let me just copy this, or else let's save this and this collection. Let me just take another window. Okay, now I can copy this localhost. This is how we will do mistakes usually. Silly mistakes. Right, so let's trigger now. I think now event is generated. Yeah, now Mule debugger is generated. See, now the debug point is coming here. Let's click next. Yeah, it should go to here. This library is library URI parameter, right? So now at this point, is there any variables available? No, right? So let's click and see here on attributes. You can see query params, everything. It will be available here. So query params is there, and see URI parameter size is 1 because we have sent library ID as URI parameter in the Postman. So once you click on next, this information is saved in the variable. As of now, there is no variables, right? Because the variable code available in this data view. So whenever the control is here in this component, the payload or all the information available here is from the previous component. So once we click on next processor, now see the variable size is 2 because here in data view what we have done, we have created one variable and we have saved this URI parameter value into that variable. So that is why now that variable is created. Now it is showing variable is 2 and second variable is library ID which is having the value of URI parameter which you have sent here through localhost URL, right? So now you have this URI parameter, right? Let's as of now we don't have any payload, so let's click next processor. The logger is executed. Next it should go to that flow reference inside the flow. See now it is in library IMPL configuration file, and now it went to get library by ID flow. Now it is in database connector. Now once we click on the database next, then the database connector will get executed. So click next. Yeah, now the database connector is executed. The payload should be available now. Payload means the response from the database. Because the previous connector is, because now the the control is here in this data view. So previous connector to this data view is database. So now if you can see the payload, this payload is output of this database connector. If you can see, we have only one object. You can just see like payload 0. Payload size is 1 because we have only one object. Once you click here, yeah, let's click on next. It is executed because we don't have any next component here. So once you can do, you can see the response here in the Postman. See now, let me just maybe maximize this. See now, in our database we have two libraries, IBS 112 and IBS 111. But now it is getting, I mean, it should it is sending response of the details of IBS 111 only, because based on the URI parameter we are sending here, that library details it should connect to the database. It will pick the database particular library details dynamically from the database. So let me save, change this. Now I need to get IBS 112 library details. So let's click send. Let's see, another event is also triggered. Now the control is here. Click next. Next, now the second variable, the library ID is 112. It is taking dynamically, right? So let's click next. Now you should get response for 112. See, library code 112 details now coming as a response. Right? So this is how you need to work with URI parameters, and you need to read the URI parameters dynamically by using attributes syntax. Right? So now we have done second flow implementation as well. So now what we need to do, you need to do the third flow, third requirement, which is nothing but to create a new book in the book info table. Right, as of now we have worked with only library details table to pull all the library details and to pull only one library details based on the ID. Now let's work on this books info table to create a new record. Right, so to do that, what you need to do, you need to just you need to first have like all the field names you need to have. Okay, so to do that, I'm just copying these details from here. You need to have this insert syntax. So let me just copy this somewhere. because in libraries table we have done only read operation, select operation. Even for two requirements it is read operation. We just pull the details from the table. But now in this database, sorry, this books table, books info table, we need to create a new book. So you need to use syntax like for insert syntax, insert query you need to run. Okay, maybe yeah. Let me just replace all the quotations. Quotations are not needed actually. So okay, find and replace. I want to remove all these quotations. Replace it with nothing. And yeah, let it be. We need to send these values dynamically. So in values, I'm not removing any quotations as of now. Okay, yeah, let it be. Let's build another flow that is for creating new book. We need to invoke that here. I mean, we need to call that particular implementation here in this post books one. Okay, so here we can just delete this. We can just have a logger because that is a dummy response. We don't want to use a dummy response right now. So let's go back to the Mule perspective. Let's stop this. Let's complete the implementation. Then we can rerun this. Okay, so I stopped the server. I went to the Mule perspective to do another implementation. And so this library IMPL is related to all the libraries related tables. We can create one more configuration file which is related to all the books info table. We can do that to segregate the code. This is also a best practice. If you want to segregate the code, you can create specific IMPL files, implementation files. Books info hyphen IMPL .xml. So I am creating this configuration file now. This is the new one. Here we need to implement the flow. You need to drag and drop the flow first, and you can just rename this flow like create new book. Now we are implementing our third requirement. So create new book flow, maybe just for our understanding, create new book flow. So here what you need to do, you need to create new database, sorry, new record in the database. So for that we have insert operation of the database. So earlier we have drag and drop select operation. Now you need to go with insert operation. So drag and drop in the process, and yeah, this connector configuration is same because we are using the same database connector. But what will change? The table will change, the query will change. The query we need to send this insert query. So let me copy this and paste it here. But the values, it will insert these default values if we run the same query. But we need to send the values dynamically by using this input parameters, which we have done by using that, which we have done in the similar way for the URI parameter, right? So you need to first capture all the details from the input payload, because now what will happen this time, it is a post request. Let me just change this, just display name just for our understanding. Okay, so now what will happen, let's take any other URL. Let's duplicate this. How to test this post method, that we need to discuss first. Okay, now let's save this. Just a simple name for our understanding. So create book dev URL maybe. So this time you need to invoke post method, because creating new book is post method as per our requirement, right? Now the path, let me save this, let it be, I'll explain you how we can do. So this is the post method, okay, but the resource name is books, so slash books, okay. As this is the post method, what you need to do, you need to send the headers as it is, that is for sure, because for all the resources we have the common headers. But for this post method, you need to send a request body as well. Instead of, for get methods, there is no request. Only we will get the response. But for this post method, you need to send request body also. What information it need to insert into the database. You need to say that, right? You need to first, then let's say for example, we are sending some data here in this request payload. From this request payload, it should capture the details, and it should capture all the information in input parameters here. Then from this input parameters, we are sending those values dynamically into this query. So these are the 3 steps you need to do. Right, so what payload we need to send, how to send by using Postman. So first thing, you need to just select raw, and what kind of payload, it is JSON, just set this. Then we have some sample data. We have already have some sample data, right, in our RAML. See API examples, create new book, input example is there, right? So this is the sample data we are going to send while creating new book. But once the book is created, what it will do, book name we have given, it should generate one unique book name, book ID, and it should send that as a response. That is another functionality. First we need to insert this, right? So you can copy this payload and give it here. You can say, yeah, for this IBS library code you need to insert this book. But for now we have only 2 libraries in the library details, or maybe in this books info also we have only 2 libraries, IBS 111, IBS 112. So let's try to insert this new book dynamically in the IBS 111 library. So let's change this library code, IBS 111, and half girlfriend, is this book already available? It is already available. So let's give another data here, okay. Maybe you can say SAPIS retail book for example, okay. So to make you difference, this is also by using CLAT, author is CLAT, and book category is tech, and, so let it be all the other things, yes, and rating is 5 maybe. So let's try to insert this data into the database through this query, right? So to do that, what you have to do, first go to your books.impl, maximize this. You need to first capture this information, all these field names, and you can read all these field names one by one by using payload dot this key name. Payload dot library code means it will replace the value. Payload dot title means you will get this name. Payload dot author means you will get CLAT, like that. So we need to create couple of input variables here, okay, or else you can just directly use the same thing, but instead of the values you can read it dynamically. Now you have to first delete these quotations in the keys. Just for your understanding, I am giving same key names, but in real time key names will differ. You need to map accordingly. Or else let me change few names, you will get understand. Okay, so L code I can say instead of library code, and instead of title I can give name. Instead of book category, I can give B category. Read time in hours, read TRs. Rental price, instead of that I can give rent price. Rating, let the remaining fields be like that. Okay, so I'm just removing these values. I need to read them by using dynamically by using payload. So now payload dot, what is the L code means? This is how you need to first understand what is the field mapping. So L code means in our payload it is a library code. So you need to map with this field, payload dot library code. Like that, here name means what? In our request the name means it is title. So you need to map that. So this is also a part of your requirements gathering. You need to first understand which field should map to which field, and from where you are getting that value. Okay, so author means in our payload also it is author, so no need to change. You need to first do like payload dot author. It will read automatically because there is no change. So the names which we are reading like payload dot are request names. So here book category is there. Here it is B category, but you need to read it to book category. So payload dot book category. Okay, like that you need to do this for all the fields. So let me do it one by one. Payload dot your field name, and last three are there. And rating, bestseller, bestseller, there is no change in the field name, so you can leave it as it is. Right, so let's save this. So now we have captured all the input parameters. Now what you have to do, you need to just give this L code, name, author, these key names. You need to pass them dynamically here in the values section by using colon syntax. So I have just removed the things, the existing one. So here in this values you need to pass one by one all the fields by using colon. So it means colon L code, comma, you need to follow the same order to insert the data, right? So colon, next field name, you need to now take these names because our input parameter names are this. So it will be little confusion if you are doing it for the first time, but please do practice well, try to understand what is the concept here. So we are now reading the values from the payload. These are all the payload field names from which we are sending this postman or any other data. This is the input payload field names. Okay, these are all the input payload field names. Now here it is a parameters we are creating. You can give any names here, but you need to read the same name. Okay, then here we are passing this same input parameter names by following the syntax like colon and field name. Like that you need to provide all the fields in the same order. You need to remember these points, right? If you change the order, the wrong value will be inserted in the column. That's not the right one. So rating, comma, sorry, colon. It's not semicolon, it is colon. Okay, please pay attention. Okay. So now we have mapped all the input parameter names here. Now we are done with the query part. Let's save this. Let's add one transform message. Actually our requirement is it should generate one unique number, then it should send that unique number as a response, right? So But let's try to understand book code. What we have given for the book code? We have not given anything in the book code, right? What's there in our query? Library code, book code. Okay, but book code is not there in the payload. Okay, for now maybe the book code field we are not passing here. We will remove this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So book code we are not passing here. You can just delete this field name. It should generate automatically, right? So what we can do, so in this case once we insert this data, book code will not insert. We need to do it separately, but for now JSON here, the response you can say book added successfully and code. As of now what you can do, actually you can generate the book code dynamically by using some UUID. It is a random text it will generate. Okay, but we can just name it like IBS. No, it's like what is the book code field we are following? BK, right? So BK we can just append this value. Okay, and along with that, instead of this UUID means it will generate one random value. It will add that random value here. So instead of that, what you can do, we can add now. Now means the time, what time it is created. We can add the now operator. So it will add the time. Or else maybe let's try this UUID. I'll show you the now operator later because we need to follow some other format. You will get confused by this time. So it will what it will do, it will create a new code BK space and this one. So it will create a new book ID as a response. But that book ID should get inserted in database also again. Right. So how we can achieve that? Here once it is generated, maybe by using book name we can do that. Let's see, let's run this. Let's see how this is generated. Then we can see the second part to insert this book ID into the database again. So we need to add one more database call. So let me just put some debug point here, but we didn't call this flow anywhere. It won't work. So we need to first call this flow by using flow reference. You need to invoke that flow, create book flow. You can just replace it the same name, save it, and try to put one debug point here, and let's try to run this in a debug mode. Okay, still deploying. So it is deployed. Let's try to run sending this payload. Let's send. Sorry, again I have triggered this one. When CloudHub URL, I need to trigger localhost. Let me trigger. Control came here. Now see the payload, it is showing some payload here because we have sent this is the request payload. That is why it is sending payload now. Earlier it is not there. So let's click next. What happened? It throws error. See, whenever you see red mark here, it throws exception. What happened? Let's see what is the exception. Maybe. Is it not books? It shows bad request. So something is missed in the header part or body part. Let's see this in Exchange. Secret correlation. These are all the headers. What happened? Category. Title. Oh, okay. We have given different payload. Now we need to change this. See, book code also, library code is not there. We have some discrepancy in this payload. Title, author, book category, read time hours. Let's try with this. It should work, but it will not work our query. We did some changes. Maybe while creating this in another request, as in my new account, I missed something maybe. Let me try with this. Now it went through. So this is how you can actually validate the request payload also, right? So now it will throw error here for sure because we don't have a couple of fields. Yeah, it shows exception. It shows, I mean, it throws error, the red mark, right? So what it mean? It doesn't have say library code column cannot be null, something like that, because we are not sending any library code here in our response. So what we can do, we can change this raml. Actually we have to change this raml. I mean, let me first finish this. Let's just close this. Okay, I just closed it. I need to change the raml. So I have to add this into my YAML, and I need to publish it as a new asset version. Then I have to complete this, then only we can able to test it, right? But before that, what we can do, we can just commit the code as it is, because till now it is working fine, right? So don't want to miss that. So go to this System Explorer, let's commit the code. Till now it is working fine. So let's click on show more options with patch here. Git add space dot, it will add all the files. So git commit -m, this one, like two requirements code, code of libraries, just for our understanding. So we have done, and one post method, just for our understanding. Okay, let's commit this. Let's push this, git push origin. Okay, so it should pull, push to the remote repository, right? So till now, what are the code we have worked on, what is working fine, we have actually commit that code. Now you need to fix this issue. You need to first change this your request example in your YAML. We need to republish it. Then again we need to add this as a dependency here, and we need to change everything. As this video is already extended more than 1 hour, maybe let's do this in another video. Let's split this, stop this video here. I will fix this issue and I'll show you how to fix this issue. Right, we can continue from here in our next video, so that we can complete another requirement also. Another requirement is to get the book details based on the rating and library code and all, right? So that also we need to do. So in the next video we can do that. Then we can complete that. Then we can start with process API. Right? Okay. Thank you. Let's meet in another video.